What's up? What's up? What's up? Happy June to each and every last one of you. I can't believe it's June of 2023 already. That's crazy to me. Like the year is halfway over. Like we're at the halfway mark of 2023, and then we're going to enter into 2024. Like, for all of us vintage teenagers out there, can we just pause for a moment? You know, if you were graduating from high school and the 90s or back, 90s back, or even we'll give you early 2000ers. We'll let you be a part of this conversation. But if you graduated from the early 2000s and back, 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s, think about this. It's 2023, people. Like, who would have ever thought, back then? We were not even thinking about it. I remember when the whole Y2K thing was happening. Like, that was comical on a lot of levels. But man, it is 2023 right now, man. That is really, really crazy. I don't know why I opened up like that. I was just saying happy June, but yeah, it just made me think about that. Those are just the random thoughts that come in my head that I just had a moment to share with you. And but anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program. Welcome to yet another episode of our Chasing Elephant podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, your brother, your friend, your cousin, your good cousin, but Jeff Wallace, happy to be here with you. And as I shared with you last week, our brother, the Dr. Brent Crow, PhD. He is doing camps, preparing for our SLU 401 Israel and Jordan experience, which I'll be a part of as well. I'm super excited about that. And so I got an opportunity to kick off a two-part series entitled The Practice, the Nuts and Bolts of Effective Student Ministry. And the reason why I'm kicking it off or actually doing this two-part series is because I'm a youth pastor. Now, Brent is as well, but I really love talking about the nuts and bolts, the practical things as it pertains to all things student ministry, not just the programming side, but also us, the people. How do we really help ourselves be the best version of ourselves? And so last week, if you got a chance to hear that episode last week, I really talked about the 5 fundamentals, if you will, or the 5 things that are needed to cultivate an effective student ministry. But the part 2, the B part of this particular series, is all about, keeping it practical for the leader. Like what I actually call this like my leadership dozen, like the 12 things I believe every leader needs to know, to do, to implement, or practice if they're going to really approach not just having a healthy student ministry, but actually being healthy themselves as a leader. Hey, we hear this word a lot of times in conference world or when it comes to self-care. We hear this word called soul care. And that's important, but it's also, how do you care for yourself as a leader? How are you intentional about caring for yourself as a leader? So I want to walk us through what I call the 12 things that every leader needs to know. Again, as I mentioned last week, if you are driving, if you are in the office and you're supposed to be doing work, but you're listening to this podcast, number 1, thank you. Number 2, don't get in trouble. But number 3, if you're trying to play it off, don't worry about it. For all of you who don't have pen and pad in your hand and you aren't sitting somewhere with your feet up, enjoying the kickoff of the summer, listening to this smooth voice of this is what happens when Brent leaves me by myself. But if you are somewhere where you can write and everything, that's awesome. But if you're not, don't worry about it. We're going to drop these points that I'm going to share today. We're going to drop them in our show notes, so we'll have an opportunity for you to get those. So don't worry about it if you don't catch all the points. But just 12 things that I want to just share that really are a lot of my own personal practices that I learned either over my time as a student pastor for over 2.5 decades, or I should say, that I'm actually still practicing right now. So 12 things that I think every leader needs if they're going to really be effective as a leader. So let's just jump right in for time's sake. I've done enough silly stuff. I've tripped over myself a little bit here, but let's get into some nuggets. All right. So here we go. Number one, first thing that I think is important that every leader needs is he or she needs to keep their spiritual priorities intact. That's number one. You want to keep your spiritual priorities intact. What are the threefold levels of the spiritual priorities? Number one, Jesus first in all things. Our relationship with Jesus, is so important, and that is it's significant that we prioritize that over any and all things, that we are spending some time, in prayer, fasting, reading God's word, getting close to the Father, making that a priority is so important. So you want to have number one, Christ first in all things. Number two, it is family. So if you're married, spouse and children, everything, but just family is number two. And then three is church and ministry. Now, obviously, number one is so important, and that's easy. But two, I think it's important that we acknowledge family has to be priority over ministry. Why is that? Because we don't want to spend our life journey ministering to people from all parts of the country, doing some incredible ministry, seeing all of these death to life experiences at the expense of our family. And so you need to prioritize that. If you are married, like I am, to one wife, that's biblical. That is what you're supposed to do. But if you're married, man, you got to be intentional about date night. You got to be intentional about setting aside some time with your spouse that y'all are hanging out. It's on the calendar, and it's there's nothing changes that, right? If you have kids, what are some times that you guys are spending time with your kids, going on vacation? These things are so important because you just don't want your family to resent the ministry. So you want to keep your spiritual priorities intact. That's number one. I don't think I need to go any further with that. I think we all will agree with that. At least I hope. And so number one, keeping your spiritual priorities intact. Number two, and let me just say this, by the way, the order may not be, you could prioritize everything from 2 to 12 in your own rhythm. I think number one is number one, no matter where you are in your phase, stage, and journey and ministry life. But number 2 through 12, you could kind of move and shuffle them around however you want. So before you at me and say, Jeff, I would have put 7 in front of 2. Hey, that's your business. It's your 12. You can mix and match 2 to 12 however you want. All right. So I want to say that before those of us who are very systematic and analytical and process everything. I want to say that. All right. So number 2, if you're doing meetings, make your meetings count. Make your meetings count. I think it's important that you have an agenda. You receive, if you're on a team, receive prayer requests. Allow your team an opportunity before you do business to share some God moments, and then be timely. If the meeting is just an hour, be an hour. If the meeting is going to be a little longer, acknowledge that on the front end so that you create realistic expectations. I think it will speak to your character and integrity as a leader if you are making your meetings count. Like, there needs to be walkaways. There needs to be action items. You need to also acknowledge, is this a dream session meeting, or is this a task specific meeting where we're really kind of honing down some tasks? Because the worst thing that you can do is set the expectation. This is a task driven meeting, but you come in and have a dream session meeting. Now, it's nothing wrong with having a dream session meeting, but your team needs to be prepared for what the meeting is all about. So you want to make sure, as a leader, you want to make sure that you're setting your meetings with some purpose, right? So that's number 2 on the list, right? Number 3, lead your ministry as a team and not a hierarchy. Lead your ministry as a team and not a hierarchy. What do I mean by that? Well, you want to surround yourself with wise leaders, not yes men and women. You want people who are wise, who are gifted, who are talented. Here's also a side note. You as a leader want to staff around your weaknesses. So what do you do well? Own that, but then staff around your weaknesses. And so you want to make sure that you have a team, not this hierarchy. You want to also go at the pace of your team. You want to know, as a great leader, you want to know the pace of your team. You don't want to go too fast. You don't want to go too slow, but you want to keep a proper pace with them. Also, know the temperament of your team. Be able to acknowledge those moments where you can see there's some fatigue that's setting in on your team. And maybe if you know your team and you know the pace of your team, then maybe you need to pivot because you recognize, okay, our team right now, they're fatigued. So let's switch it up a little bit. And so I think it's important to lead your team if you're going to be effective in ministry, and not be so committed to hierarchy. And I'm going to deal with that a little bit more a little later. All right. Number four, approach your ministry context as a lifelong learner, not a boss or a know-it-all. All right, let me say that again. Approach your ministry context as a lifelong learner, not a boss or a know-it-all. Have systems of communication that allow you to know about the needs of your students, your parents, and your volunteers. And so you want to make sure that you are, let me unpack this a little bit. So you want to make sure that, you don't always come like you know everything. Like you're always somebody who can forecast what the next cultural trend is, and you've already got an answer for it. You want to make sure that you don't come in like a person who knows everything about what parents are going through. You know what every single parent is going through. You know what every parent who's been through a divorce is going through, and the impact that's had on the kids. Now, for a student, but you may know some things based on your own lived experiences. Yes, awesome. Pull from that, but you want to approach your context always as a lifelong learner. In certain situations that you're in, how can you learn from this? There were some moments, I don't have time to share. I got many examples of how I learned from situations in my ministry journey. But there's moments that, something happened that I didn't really necessarily see coming, or it was something new. I was like, wow, I learned from that moment, and it was allowing me to put some tools in my tool belt. So you want to make sure that you're approaching this journey of leadership, this journey of ministry as a lifelong learner. You don't want to have the posture, I'm a boss, I know it all, I got it all together, because I'm just telling you, it is at that moment where you're going to stifle your leadership. So make sure that you're approaching your context as a lifelong learner. That's so important. Number five, expose your students and your adult leaders to ministries and organizations that are doing better than you. All right, listen, for some of you, like, what? Then they might go over there to that ministry or organization that's doing better than us. Hey, listen, if that's what you're worried about, can I just tell you, then you need to step your game up as a person who trusts God in all things, right? Like, first and foremost, they're not necessarily our adult leaders and our students. The Lord has brought us all together for a time such as now to do something in this moment. So here's the thing, and understand, seasons come and seasons go. So people are with us for a moment in a season, and then they may transition and move on. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But I think it's important that we expose our adult leaders and expose our students to ministries and organizations and programs that are crushing it, right? Not for you to build envy or jealousy or resentment, but for you to cast vision of, hey guys, here is some things that we can do. Now, also understand this: everything that you see, you may not be able to do exactly like that. And you may, can I just suggest to you that some things that you're going to see that's super awesome, you don't want to try to mimic them, because God has gifted that ministry or organization to do it that way with excellence. But there are some things that you can pull, some nuggets that you can pull from that. Man, how did they communicate that well? Or man, how did they create this irresistible environment? Man, how did they cultivate or facilitate, this environment where there was such togetherness and unity? What are some things that we can do to expand our single story perspective? So I think it's important that you expose your students and your leaders to a whole bunch of things. Can I just brag on our organization for a moment, and our ministry, and particularly our president, Dr. Jay Strack, and our vice president, Dr. Brent Crow. One of the beauties about the SLU 101 to 401 journey is we're trying to do just that. We're trying to expose students to some of the most sought after thought leaders, to some of the most incredible leadership content, to some of the most incredible and historical places in the world. I mean, we're trying to expose students, or we do actually expose students to John Wesley's church, C.S. Lewis Church. We go to where the Battle of Normandy actually took place. I mean, we're exploring Israel and Jordan. We're exposing students to some amazing leaders in our public square in Washington, D.C. Why? Because we're trying to expand our students' single story perspective. We're really trying to teach them how to think, how to dream, how to lead at the feet of Jesus. And the hope is that as we open our students' eyes and expose our students to all of these incredible environments and people, that in turn they will go back to their local church, their Christian school, their homeschool network, or wherever environment that they're in, and that they will take what they've learned from us in the SLU 101 to 401 journey, and they will apply that knowledge to their context. And so it just makes for a very incredible experience when we can say, hey, we're going to be intentional about exposing our leaders and our students to things that they've never seen before. And I just think that makes you a great leader yourself when you do that. Number six, make serving and sharing your faith a priority. We never stop living out Matthew 28, friends. Like, we just don't. Like, everything that we do, I don't care what your role is, what your title is, what your job description is, we never, ever, ever stop living out Matthew 28. And so I think that that's important, that's always in the back of our mind. When we think about vocation, I can't wait for Brent and I, we're going to do maybe. It's a suggestion. So when you're listening to this, Brent, this is a suggestion, my friend. But maybe we might talk about, the importance of, or reimagining the whole idea of ministry vocation, right? And so, but we got to understand, no matter what you're doing, whether you're a lead pastor or you are the president of a Fortune 100 organization, God's still calling you to be salt and light and to live out Matthew 28, right? So make serving and sharing your faith a priority. Now, remember, friends, I said at the beginning, this list is not in any particular order. Shuffle it around however you want to shuffle around. All right. They're just 12 bullet points that I'm sharing. All right. So let's keep on going. So that was number 6. Number seven, as a ministry team, read through good books that will help you grow in what you do. Remember this phrase: leaders are always readers. How can you confront culture when you don't study it? One of the things that we always do for our summer staff, our full-time and part-time staff, hey, we're always going through some book together, right? And so, we're always doing that. And so we'll read Seth Godin's Lynchpin. I mean, that's a great book. And so what are some books that you want to read with your team to really walk through that together? Because Again, leaders are lifelong learners and leaders are always readers. So that is number 7. All right. Number 8. Number 8. As a leader, keep yourself as a leader, keep yourself surrounded by other leaders who are going further or have gone further than you have. Don't always be the smartest in the room. Man, can I just park here for a minute? If you're always the smartest in the room, and I say this to students every time I get an opportunity, if you're always the smartest in the room, 9 times out of 10, you're in the wrong room. So you want to make sure that you are around leaders, or you're surrounding yourself around leaders who have gone further than you have gone, who have a little bit more tread on the tire maybe than you do. I think that's so important. That's how you stretch yourself. Man, I can brag a whole bunch on him because he's not here, and it will make him uber uncomfortable if I was to do this in his face. But can I just tell you, I learned so much from my brother Brent. I mean, he's probably one of the most brilliant individuals I've ever met. I mean, he thinks critically about everything, and he has just this love for history. I learned so much from our COO, Nikki Hoffpower. She can organize the mess out of any and everything, and she's a hard worker. She is one who I've learned on how to multitask well. Like, she's the queen of multitasking with excellence. And so, but I've learned so much from her. I've learned from Dr. J, the importance and the ability to, the importance of this phrase, there's always a way. Right? Like, Dr. J doesn't know what no means. Like, right? If there is an obstacle to overcome or a hill that needs to be climbed, man, he's going to figure out a way to climb it. And so I've learned so much from the people around us. Our creative director, Brian Martinez, many of you know him as El Val. Man, this dude is a beast creatively, and the way he thinks about things and process things, and how he can take a very abstract look, or take a simple principle and idea and look at it in a very abstract way and make it really cool and relevant. Like, I love that. So being in around a team of people who can make me better is awesome. And all I am is just a lonely old little youth pastor who's just trying to figure it out every day, right? And so I'm the weak link on the team. Let me just tell that to your friends. And so I appreciate the favor of God and the hand of God allowing me to be on this team. But get people around you that can make you better. All right, let's keep on going. Got a few more to go, my friends. Number 9. Be committed for the long haul, or until God moves you along. Then I just want to say this phrase: longevity is cool. First ministry job I was there almost 30 years. Here I've been a part of our team for 7 years, and Lord willing, I could be here for 7 more years. I love longevity. Why? Because there's one thing about being a part of something. There's another thing for me about seeing something to completion. I love building. I love the journey. I love, not just celebrating momentum, not just figuring out how to turn it around when we're in decline, but I also learn how to figure out to move when we're in those places of plateau and we're just kind of going along. And so I'm always loving and trying to figure out how we can navigate different seasons of ministry. And I love going on journey and seeing milestones. So be committed, guys. Hey, listen, as a leader, you're going to have season of challenge. You're going to have seasons of struggle. You're going to have seasons of strain, but be committed for the long haul. And number 9 actually goes, in my humble opinion, with number 10, which is be patient. Be patient. Sometimes you're not going to be able to build it fast. And guess what? That's okay. Sometimes you're going to have failures. And guess what? That's okay. As long as you learn how to redefine your failures as lessons, man, it's all good. But be patient. Sometimes it's a marathon and not a sprint. Now, there's going to be moments where everything you touch, boom, it turns into gold. I admire leaders that are like that. Unfortunately, that hasn't been my story. I have to be patient. We're building in this. So, man, don't get God's word tells, don't get weary in well doing, but be patient to the process. Oh, actually 9, 10, and 11 and 12, they all kind of go together. Number 11 is be content, but do not be lazy. Be content. Being content is, as my friend Nona Jones wrote a book about killing comparison. I love the book. Great book to pick up, by the way. But it talks about being content in what the Lord has gifted you in. Be content in the place that the Lord has you. But don't be lazy. Don't allow your contentment to birth a spirit of laziness or rationalizing why you can't go the extra mile. So be content. It's all good. Don't seek necessarily success from numbers and notoriety. Seek success in knowing that what you're doing, you're pleasing the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the Almighty God. And then number 12, which could be definitely number 1 or 2, pray. Pray in season and out of season. Pray daily. Pray always. Why? Because the ministry journey we're in, whether you're in full-time ministry, part-time, you're bivocational, you're a volunteer, can I just tell you, spiritual warfare is real, my friends. It is so real. So you need to pray to the one who has the ability to fight the fight for us. So ministry involves warfare against a very real enemy, Satan. He's real. It's not this devil that you see dressed up in a red suit with pitchfork and the horns. No, my friends, he is real, and he seeks to kill, steal, and destroy. But we involve in our prayer life, we involve what I call the ultimate warrior who can help fight for us, or who will fight on our behalf to help us win this generation to Jesus and help us move through the spiritual warfare that we're dealing with in our own lives. And so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And so here is the thing, this idea of the practice. This idea of the practice, dealing with the nuts and the bolts of effective student ministry, is not just from the program side, but it's also the practical side of us as leaders. And so I pray, I hope that these past 2 episodes have been beneficial. Again, a lot of information, a lot of content. I said a lot. I tend to do that from time to time, but we will have those in the show notes. And as always, my friends, I hope you will do us a favor. Number 1, you'll subscribe. Number 2, you'll like. Number 3, you'll share. Number 4, you'll review. Good reviews only, please. But then number 5, you'll follow us. Follow us at SLU Lead, at SLU Lead. You can also follow me at I am Jeff Wallace, at I am Jeff Wallace. And then you can follow my brother Brent at Brent Crow, at Brent A. Crow. Make sure you put the A in there, at Brent A. Crow. Hey friends, until next time, make sure you're doing everything that you can every day of your life to be intentional about being the best version of yourself. Until next time, can't wait to connect with you. Peace.